It was meant to be the day of romance, a celebration of unity, yet the Duke and Duchess of Sussex found themselves separated by over 1,000 miles of land and sea, a physical distance that many are whispering reflects an emotional chasm growing ever wider in Montecito. While Prince Harry stood alone in the freezing cold of Vancouver to close his Invictus games, Meghan was notably absent, safely ensconced in California, sparking a frenzy of speculation that required a rather desperate performative social media post to quell. Good evening, and thank you for joining me for this discussion. One has to ask, doesn't one, when a couple has built their entire brand, their entire public identity, on the concept of a love story so epic it required fleeing a continent to protect, why would they choose to spend the most romantic day of the year on opposite sides of the border? We are told, of course, the usual platitudes. Meghan had to return to Archie and Lilibet. The children needed their mother. A convenient excuse, and one that would be perfectly laudable were it not for the fact that the Duchess has never shied away from the cameras when the lighting is flattering and the adoration is palpable. A source behind closed doors suggests that the decision for Meghan to skip the closing ceremony was not entirely about maternal duty. There are murmurs that the reception in Canada had been cooler than anticipated, not the hero's welcome of years past, but a polite, somewhat weary acknowledgement. Harry, looking rather more beleaguered than we have seen him in some time, was left to wave the flag alone. It paints a rather stark picture, doesn't it? The prince, once the darling of the playful public engagement, now standing solo on a stage, while his better half, or perhaps we should say his managerial half, decided that the optics of a freezing Vancouver stadium didn't quite align with her current aesthetic. But nature abhors a vacuum, and the tabloids abhor a silence. No sooner had the news of their separation broken than the headlines began to swirl. Was this a trial separation? A cooling of tempers? A well-placed source suggests that the tension has been brewing for months, centered, as it always seems to be, on money and future direction. The Sussex brand requires constant fueling, constant visibility, and without the royal machinery behind them, the strain of keeping the lights on in Montecito is reportedly taking its toll. And how did the Duchess respond to these whispers of a rift? Did she maintain a dignified silence? Hardly. In a move that felt almost frantically calculated, we saw the sudden appearance of a sweet tribute on social media. An archival photo, grainy and artistic in that carefully curated way, showing the couple in a passionate embrace from years ago, captioned with a lament about missing her Valentine. It felt to the cynical observer like a plaster over a gaping wound. It was loud. It was demonstrative. It was frankly a bit much. It screamed, "Look at us. We are still the greatest love story ever told." A sentiment that usually only needs to be shouted when one fears the audience has stopped believing it. Now, compare this Hollywood melodrama with what was happening back home. The contrast could not have been more bruising for the Sussexes. Kensington Palace released a photograph of the Prince and Princess of Wales taken during a quiet walk in Norfolk. There were no filtered kisses, no dramatic captions, no declarations of undying passion meant to convince a skeptical public. It was simply William and Kate, side by side, dressed in practical country attire, sharing a genuine, unguarded smile. A well-meaning staff member notes that the Wales' strategy was deliberate. They know the world is watching. They know the noise coming from across the Atlantic is deafening. Their response is silence, stability, and quiet luxury. That photograph radiated a sense of calm that money simply cannot buy. It said, "We are here. We are steady. We are the future." It was a masterclass in soft power. While Meghan was digging through hard drives to find a photo that proved she was still in love, Kate simply went for a walk with her husband. The public reaction was instantaneous. The internet, usually a cesspool of division, seemed to collectively exhale at the sight of the Waleses. It was a reminder of what royalty is supposed to look like: dignified, not desperate. This brings us to the crux of the matter, and it is something a source within the inner circle has alluded to recently. The Sussexes are finding that drama has a diminishing return on investment. You can only cry wolf, or in this case, cry perfect romance, so many times before the audience starts to check their watches. The Valentine's Day split was a tactical error. Leaving Harry alone at Invictus, his one remaining undeniable success story, made him look isolated. It stripped away the power couple veneer and left just a prince, looking slightly lost in a coat that seemed a size too big, figuratively speaking. Meanwhile, Meghan's attempt to control the narrative from California felt disconnected. It highlighted the artifice of their current existence. If you have to post a photo from 3 years ago to prove you are happy today, what does that say about the present moment? The financial aspect cannot be ignored here either. A well-placed source indicates that the pressure to deliver content is causing friction. Netflix and the publishers want the personal, the gritty, the real. Harry, perhaps realizing the cost of selling his family down the river, is hesitant. Meghan, ever the producer, knows that quiet doesn't sell. This divergence in strategy, Harry wanting to be the statesman, Meghan wanting to be the star, was physically made manifest on February 14th. One on a stage, one on a screen. The overarching narrative of this past fortnight has been one of resilience versus restlessness. The monarchy, after a year that would have broken lesser institutions, stands firm. That photo from Norfolk was a victory lap without a single step being run. It showed a couple who have weathered the storm of health scares and public attacks and emerged with their dignity intact. Conversely, the Sussexes appear to be running on a treadmill of their own making. Lots of movement, lots of noise, but are they actually going anywhere? A source behind closed doors whispers that the phone calls from Montecito to London are going unanswered, not out of malice, but out of indifference. The palace has moved on. The gray rocking technique, ignoring the narcissist until they lose interest, seems to be working. And perhaps that is what panicked Meghan the most this Valentine's Day. Not the separation from Harry, but the realization that the world was looking at William and Kate and seeing everything that the Sussexes promised but failed to deliver: authenticity, duty, and a love that doesn't need a press release to prove it exists. As we move further into 2026, expect this pattern to continue. We will see more solo Harry, trying to reclaim his identity as the humanitarian prince. We will see more curated Meghan, trying to launch the next lifestyle venture. But as this Valentine's Day proved, the magic of the Harry and Meghan roadshow is fading. The audience is tired of the performance. They are looking for something real. And unfortunately for the duo in California, real is currently residing in a quiet corner of Norfolk, wearing a wax jacket and smiling at the camera, completely unconcerned with the noise from the cheap seats.